we left Angulimala with a garland of 999 fingers, and then he met with Gautama, Shakyamuni Buddha. And actually, in the suttas anyway, I suppose it's a legend, but again, a good one. He becomes a disciple of Gautama, of the Buddha. And he, in that life, becomes an arhat, a fully awakened one. So what are your chances? Pretty good, I reckon, huh? However, minor point, he didn't kill 1,000 people, just 999. But is there some causes and conditions, some what we would call karma that comes from that? Just became a disciple of the Buddha and I guess did some meditation and then he became an arhat? Well, not exactly. If you carefully read the sutta, by the way, it's only a couple of pages and it's called the Angulimala Sutta. After retreat, take a look, not during. It says that after Angulimala became an arhat, fully awakened one, he was out begging on the begging rounds, like when he first met Gautama Buddha, who was out on the begging rounds. Now it's Angulimala as a Buddhist monk, so to speak, at the time of Gautama. He is now going on his begging rounds. He goes to a village, and one of the villagers, even though he's now bald and wearing robes, recognizes Angulimala. That's the guy, the brigand, the mass murderer who killed my sister and terrorized our village. And he starts throwing stones at Angulimala. The other people in the village realize what's going on and they also throw stones at him. His robe gets torn, his begging bowl is broken, he gets cut and is bleeding, but he doesn't fight back. Well, he returns to Gautama Buddha. And Gautama Buddha sees him and asks, what happened? Angulimala explains. And Gautama Buddha says, how wonderful. What would have taken you such a long, 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 long time to work through, you are working through it now. You see, he's not denying the causes and the conditions, but he's saying, go through what you need to go through. Yeah, if you need to get bloodied, get battered a little bit, go through it now. In other traditions, they make much of a past life, a future life, many lives, and so on. And even in the Pali Suttas, it mentions Gautama Buddha recalling his past lives. Exactly what that means is worthy of serious consideration, Is it his past life, or is it the past life of numberless beings set free? But anyway, it's very clear in Zen. The awakening must be here and now. This life. Well, here it's even more radical because it's showing that being an arhat, being awakened, is he now free of all conditions? Is he floating up there in the clouds? No. He still had a past. He still did the things he did. And he, and of course that means we, perhaps must work through that It doesn't just disappear. A lot of things you already know when you sit deeply in Zazen, even something as really hard to get through, like pain. You can go through it. You can get through it. It can no longer be a problem. And yet there are things that we may have done or even just thought. But they don't just disappear. Buddhism is very clear about this, what is called the causes and the conditions. Yes, in a sense, awakening is a release from that, but it doesn't mean you become superhuman. You literally transcend them. Zen, it's very clear. You transcend them by living them. This, the conditions, the causes and the conditions that are you, what you might now look at as your limitations, your obstructions, the things you have to get free from, they are your release. Once you stop running from them. As Monica alluded to, we're not looking for pain, but if it's there, it can become either your great enemy that you fight against and make worse, or it can become part of the path of release. Here, what Gautama Buddha is making clear is, you killed 999 people. That doesn't just disappear. But there is a way to work through that, to do what needs to be done here and now. And in this case, yes, it means maybe getting pummeled, getting accosted, abused by these people with good reason. Their village was terrorized by this guy not long ago. Again, this isn't just a story about the guy who cut off 999 fingers. It's a story about all of us. There's in a way, funny koan about this, this question of the causes and the conditions. It's case 2 in the Mumon Kan, or the gateless barrier, called Hakujo. That's the Japanese pronunciation of the Chinese monk. Hakujo and the fox. It comes from a legend, a common kind of a fairy tale or a legend in China at the time. Similar in America, and I suppose in Europe as well. In the Far East, foxes are looked at as kind of sly, smart, but a little maybe tricky, a little maybe mischievous creatures. You don't want to be reborn as a fox. That's not really high up on the level of beings. Well, there was a Chinese monk, a Buddhist monk, and after a talk, he was asked by a layperson, a Chinese layperson, when you get enlightened, when you get awakened, are you free of causes and conditions or not? You see how this is directly related with the Angulimala story. However, that monk said, yes, once you're enlightened, you're free of all causes and conditions. And so, the legend has it, he was reborn as a fox for 200 lives. So much for being free of causes and conditions, right? He had to live as a fox for 200 lives. Well, it's considered a difficult to pass or a complex koan. There are several parts to it, and we needn't go into the details. But the point here is that it's almost humorous to see, this monk saying, yes, you're free of all conditions. and as a result was reborn as a fox. Obviously, it wasn't that simple. However, as a koan, one of the points of the koan is when you really see through these causes and conditions, you see, to put it dramatically, he was perfectly happy living his 200 lives as a fox. He didn't have to become somebody else. In the koan, he asks the master Hakujo, what could I have said that would have been to the point? Please give me literally a turning word, a word that can transform. And again, he had said, yes, you are free of causes and conditions. Well, now Hakujo, the master that he's asking, says, you don't deny causes and conditions. And with that, he was released from the fox's body. They found the fox's body in the behind the monastery, and they buried it as a monk. The monks didn't really understand what was going on, but when you read the koan, at least on the surface, you can see what's happening. This monk from long ago had told a parishioner, a layperson, that you are free of causes and conditions, and thus was reborn as a fox 200 times, finally was able to meet up with the master Hakujo, and was able to say, please give me a turning word so I can be saved from this fox's body. He looks like a monk, but he says, really, I'm a fox. You might say, I'm a charlatan. He's realized what a charlatan he is. And then, again, Hakujo says, don't deny causes and conditions. And then as the koan in the Mumonkan, the commentary makes clear, he was perfectly happy living those 200 lives as a fox, unless you can see through that deeply. The point is to be blunt. It's not about denying. You can't deny those causes and conditions. They're there. They're in the past, but they affect us here. We have to see that. And maybe we need to do something in response. So no, we don't simply deny the causes and the conditions. When you really see them for what they are, they themselves become fuel for the fire. They become the path itself. The fundamental flaw, the mistake, is trying to get away from that stuff so that I can have some kind of pure, up in the clouds enlightenment. Free, but what are you apart from those causes and conditions? You have to be able to see through what you think of as something that gets in the way, the obstacles, pain, the difficulties, the obstructions. Are they? Or is it what your mind does with them? As I've made clear before, clearly pain can be an obstruction. We dealt with that yesterday. Just as well, pleasure can be an obstruction. Does anyone not know what I'm talking about? Pleasure itself can become its own obstruction. As soon as we grab onto it and want to hold on to it, usually it's already pretty much gone at that point anyway. And then to try to chase after it, it becomes itself a cause of distress, dis-ease, suffering. Turned on its head, that pain, no, we're not trying to have pain, more gain, no. But if it's there, it can become the vehicle that it is. The same with pleasure. Joy, pleasure, contentment. Yes, this can become a very obvious helping path along the way. It can also become an obstruction. Beware. It's simply a matter of what this present mind does with it. Peter sitting next to me. A few years ago, I was in Hungary doing a retreat, actually just before the retreat started. They were coming to pick me up, to take me to the retreat center. I laid down, felt fine, I laid down, and I had what's called vertigo. Not just dizziness, but it's like you're lying there and you turn and the whole room goes like this, you know. It wasn't so bad that I got sick, but it's common, for example, to have to throw up or have diarrhea or something like that. It wasn't that bad, but it was not just dizziness. It was like being really drunk, you know, and you are not moving, but the room is going like this, huh? I had never had something like that. In a way, I suppose that was the sickest I've been in my life, huh? It was a few years ago during COVID. I don't know what it was caused by. But the interpreter, fortunately, I think he came here once, Mate, years ago, Mate, anyway. His mother was a doctor, so he called her and she came and did some basic stuff. I wasn't in an office, so she couldn't really use medical equipment, but she had the stethoscope and she did some things to see I wasn't having a stroke or a heart attack or something like that. And then that next morning, I think I went to the retreat and was able to do it slowly. But I emailed you, and then during a break, we did a Skype or something, huh? Because I knew, first of all, you're a nurse, a very experienced nurse. But also, we had talked about some of the problems he had had with a similar illness, Meniere's disease. Huh? So I thought maybe I should get in touch with him. So during the retreat, you're not supposed to do this, but during the break, I had a Skype with him. He was in Belgium, I was in Hungary. And he gave me some very helpful advice. And there are actually things you can do, Epley maneuver and things like that. Kind of stretching and movements that you can do to get those, basically the inner ear has these things that keep your balance, and sometimes they get out of balance. They get out and they wander around in your inner ear. And so even though you're sitting, it was a great, the reason I mention this is because it was a great experience in the end, because it showed me, I already knew, very stylish, huh? Maybe 20 years ago. Dude made a video, it's up on YouTube. And if I remember correctly, you know, there's beautiful video of the ferry that goes across the river, back then with the chains and everything. Huh? But if I remember, you also did a little bit of a Dharma talk, and that's where I'm talking about Zen is not a state of mind. Is that what I think that, if I remember correctly? Zen is not a state of mind. So obviously I already knew it somewhat back then, but I really learned it this time. Because you can see physically, sit and settled in the body and all that, and the breath and the mind and all that can really be settled. You got vertigo, that don't mean shit. You can be sitting in perfect full lotus. Actually, sitting was not such a problem. It's more like lying down, or you just turn your head to look at the clock and the nose on like that. Huh? But if you think you can stay in some kind of physical posture and that will keep everything in control, or a certain state of mind, huh? Well, have vertigo and you'll see, huh? It's not a state of mind. It's not a state of mind. It was a great confirmation, huh? A great confirmation. So, obvious point, huh? Anything taken up by the ego self can become an obstruction. And anything can become the path if we know how to use it. If we stop fighting against it, as you put it, huh? we've already touched on this, haven't we, in several ways in terms of the body and the things that trouble us in our practice physically. Huh? This afternoon we can return, and if there are no more physical issues, we can then turn to the breath, to the breath, and then eventually to the mind itself to really see how that works. Huh? Does anyone have a question or concern from out of the practice? Again, for the benefit of all, please feel free to speak up. You see how valuable it is to really get settled physically, why we have been going through these things, to really be settled physically. When the body is at rest, the breath comes more naturally, and then the mind, most important, right? Most delicate, the mind can then become settled. If the body's not yet settled, well, you see what happens.